Okay, can you hear me okay? Guillem, it's a pleasure to be with you here. As I was telling you yesterday, since I started to understand the English language and started to read international journalism back from Brazil, I've been following your work, I've been guided from your work, so to share a stage with you today is a very special moment for me.
Is that all? You can continue if you want.
That's just the first part.
Thank you.
As the panel name says, you are the football's most trusted biographer. And I think that's a very interesting key word to start with. Trust is something that not only as a writer, but mainly as a journalist, you need to develop, you need to have with your sources, with your interviewees, with your audience. How do you find that?
It's absolutely key, isn't it? If you don't have the trust, you don't have the access, and these days it's so easy to say no. Everybody who's in the elite, the world is very black and white, so you're with them or you're against them, as I think we're going to find out later on when we talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. But without that, you're nothing. But it's very easy to forget. In a day to day, you want to be the first one, you want to be the one who breaks the news, you want to be the one who tells the story first, and sometimes you forget that you don't need to be, that you can keep things in the locker, and I've learned that a long time ago, so I would say, and I guess it's the same for you, I tell, 20-30% of what I know, and the rest it's just a way to say to everyone, you can tell me things, it's not going to come out. But what comes out is because it's interesting, because it's useful to me, to the audience, perhaps to them as well. It works that way. But yeah, it's a very, very thin line. And I've got so many examples where trust could have gone one way or the other. I remember when I first started in sports journalism, I was in Liverpool, and Rafa Benitez, the manager of Liverpool, had just arrived. And to be honest, he was my only source at Liverpool. Good source, because he's the manager and he would tell me things. But if, for whatever reason, and that happened often, he didn't answer my text or would not pick my phone, I thought my world would collapse. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. He was the source of everything to me. I said, what did I do? What did I do for him not to answer, for him not to talk to me? And then he will answer, it'll be like the happiest moment of my life.
A relief.
A relief, but also the lesson that it shouldn't be your only source.
Yeah.
And then you start working on others. But yeah, you have to keep everybody happy, and that's not always easy.
If I could keep talking about trust, at which moment in your life did you trust that football should be your future?
To be honest, football it's not my passion. I'm not in love with the game. It just happened to be the place where I've been allowed to tell stories. I'm a storyteller, and my only interest is to find out who people are. Who's this Messi guy? Who's this Cristiano Ronaldo guy? What makes Pep Guardiola so special? And it never is just tactics or what they do with the ball. It's how they got there that fascinates me anyway. Same with Pochettino and Maradona. These are people. Yes, these are people that are not the usual for many reasons. Yeah. So, but these are massive people that a lot of readers or will want to know about. So, football has allowed me to be lucky enough to sell like 1 million copies of my books, and books translated to, I think, 23 languages now. So I thank football for giving me that access and living on it. But football is not. Yeah, it's just a means to my destiny.
So now we can talk about your books, please. It's incredible to see the characters that you could write so well about. It's hard to find someone that met Cristiano and Messi. There is only one person that wrote about Messi and Cristiano biographies. And how do you get access to such characters?
So you have to start with the first book, because they are seeds that get planted and then they grow, and out of which other seeds come up. And so I thought I had a book in myself. We all think we have a book in ourselves. So I was given the opportunity, literally 6-7 hours after Liverpool won the Champions League in Istanbul, to write about Rafa Benitez and that final and, coming back from the miracle of Istanbul, basically. Once that happens, then it's like, right, this has gone very well. It was written very quickly, but I told a story because I knew everybody at the club and I knew everybody at AC Milan. We should find another person, I was told by my agent and my editors, Orion in the UK, another one that people would be interested about. It took a while, but then we started seeing that Pep Guardiola was doing something that wasn't fully understood. So I thought it has to be Pep Guardiola. And again, every book I do, I go to the subject and says, I'm going to do a book on you. It's not your book. It's not an autobiography. I'm not your ghostwriter. I'm just going to study who you are. I'll talk to you at some point, talk to the people around you, allow me to do so. And Pep Guardiola was very generous at a time where, for those that remember that period, it was the Jose Mourinho Pep Guardiola battle, Barcelona Real Madrid. It was war. Mm-hmm. You either were in one side or the other. You couldn't just jump from one to the other. And it was a very hermetic world. Both sides, Real Madrid and Barcelona, wanted to control the message, wanted to control what was out there, so there were no interviews with players. And I go and say, I want to do a book, and I want to talk to everyone. But Pep knew me, and it's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So in his last season at Barcelona, we worked together. He allowed me to get into the changing room. I remember talking about trust one moment where I was talking to Xavi Hernandez, and the assistant with Pep Guardiola was passing by and shouted, "Do not talk to him, he's a friend with Jose Mourinho." That would be like, with the devil. He's the devil. We've got the devil inside. And I was a friend of Jose Mourinho. It was like, it kind of destroyed the atmosphere I had created with Xavi Hernandez, who was telling me a lot of details. I'm friends with nobody, Xavi. That's Jose, Pep, they're not friends. It's just pure word. This is how it goes. Yeah. Recovered the atmosphere. Anyway, I was inside that world, and then the book came out. But once you explore Pep Guardiola and what he was trying to do, you keep looking at Messi and you think, he's the guy that helps you win, or who is he? What does he do? So I thought, right, I need to do a book on Messi. Obviously, the publishers were very happy about that, and I went to Messi family and said, I want to do a book on you. And the answer was immediate and straight. You've got no chance, mate. No chance. It's not going to happen. Right. So that's the start of it. And
did you know them? Was it your first contact with his family?
It was the first contact with the family.
Yeah.
They had seen the book, the Pep Guardiola book, come out in English, in Spanish. But basically they told me, look, we don't trust writers. There's been books out there. We haven't even talked to the authors. They haven't come to us. And a lot of lies have been published about Messi. I thought, well, if you like the real story to be published, talk to me. And they were like, nah, sorry, just no. And he was 23, 24 at the time, so a book on Messi was novelty. One deep, in-depth book on Messi was novelty in his career. And I said, look, in the world, apart from Argentina and Spain, in the world, people know two things about Messi: that he's very good, and that he was injected hormones when he was growing because he wasn't growing naturally. That's all people know. I think we should tell the story and kill some of the lies that they've been told about Messi. I actually did a documentary on Messi for Sky Sports, and I interviewed one person in particular that told me that every time Messi, he was his coach, every time Messi scored a couple of goals, he will give him some biscuits, and that was great. And when he scored, 6 goals, it will be 3 biscuits. He never coached Messi. He never gave him any biscuits. He's not even known by the family or by Leo. He's never been in his presence, right? So like that, there were many. So I thought, we should kill those lies. Nah. But anyway, give us a call in 2 weeks' time. So 2 weeks later, I spoke to his dad and says, look, we've been thinking that apart from Spain and Argentina, people know 2 things about Messi. And repeated the words I just said 2 weeks before. I said, what a great analysis. So he said, go out there, talk to people, and we'll tell you if they are the right people to talk to or not. So I did that for 2 years, traveled everywhere, and it ended up being a big book. that I passed on to them to read because I wanted it to be fair and real. And they came back 2 years later saying, you've done a good job. If you want to call it authorized, you can call it authorized.
Yeah.
So that still is the only authorized biography of Messi, which has been updated 4 or 5 times with them. So that's, after that, you realize that the world I live in is very small, and I've been part of that world, presenting events with Leo, and see how he's developed as a person and as a public figure. So they count on me when things come to be told. That's Leo. Cristiano Ronaldo, you want to know about that as well?
Please do.
Yeah, okay. Let's say that at the beginning of my Cristiano Ronaldo biography, the beginning of it is his post in Facebook where he threatens to take me to court. So it's a completely different story between Leo and Cristiano. Because once you do Leo, you have to do Cristiano. You have to explore from a psychological point of view, sociological point of view, his context, his family, who they are, how they made it to the top, how they continue being at the top, what kind of mentality they've got, a lot of things that fascinate me. So I went to Chris. He was Chris to me at the time. Chris, we're going to do this book. Yeah, no problem. I want to talk to you. Yeah, no problem. Your family? Not a problem. I had already presented events with him as well. And then the extracts of the Messi book came out on the media, UK media, in which I said that Cristiano calls, this is in the Messi book, Cristiano calls anybody that talks to Messi, he calls them, is there kids in the audience? No? He calls him motherfucker. So that's a story really that tells you about Cristiano, but it's in the Messi book. And that obviously, when the press got hold of it, put it out there, it's like, Cristiano calls Messi
the headlines
thingy, and that's the headlines. And there was no context or anything. What I was trying to say at that point is like, look, Cristiano is a warrior, and whoever is the enemy, point it out to him because he will go and try to kill him.
Like Jose and Pep. That you just
same
mentioned.
thing,
Yeah.
same thing. It was that kind of atmosphere at the time. They were competing for the same individual trophies, collective trophies in the same league. And anybody who was close to Messi or Messi himself was the enemy. And that's how Cristiano lived his profession. But of course, this was a time where Cristiano was selling this idea that is lovely. And he had the whole PR work around him, and, him, family, lovely person.
Soften his image.
Soften his image. And that just didn't fit in. So he put on Facebook in a post to his, whatever, billion followers or whatever it is, that he was going to take me to court for saying that. Obviously, when you publish something, it's not, it's double-checked, triple-checked.
Of course.
Especially in a book. So did lawyers call you at all? Because they never called me.
So that never happened?
No. But that changed the whole perspective. On one hand, I was personally affected because I want to be friends with everyone. I don't deal well with conflict. And all of a sudden, Cristiano Ronaldo, the person I was going to write about in the next 2 years, wouldn't want to talk to me. In fact, he wants to take me to court. So the book was about what does a biographer do when the subject, who I knew personally or whatever, disappears of your area of influence. So it was about that as well. And then I realized that he had given me a freedom I did not expect. Because I had to tell the story that Cristiano took his dad out of the bar when he was 8. His dad was alcoholic and had to take him out of the bar and could not sleep until he smelled the booze in the house, and needed his dad constantly, but his dad was absent because he was drinking, and his mother was absent as well because she had to look after 4 kids and her husband, who was another kid really. So mom and dad were not there, and I had to tell that story, and of course if I had done it with them, probably they wouldn't let me. So that gave me an extra freedom, and what has come out has been the most awarded book I've got. I met Cristiano after he got published. And he said to me, facadita, which in Portuguese means you knife me in the back. Which with them, you with them or against them.
Black and white again.
And yeah, I said, well, Chris is a good book. It tells your story well, but fine. If I'm your enemy now, it's better than be anonymous in your life. So I'm part of the enemy list now.
Has he ever read the book, you think?
Not him, but I know that, do you know in Amazon, publishers look at Amazon reviews as a reference. And before it got published, there were like 20 reviews, 1 star out of 5, with broken English, I imagine from somebody Portuguese, coming and saying, never read this book. It's not a book to be read. I'm thinking, Gestifoot is doing the job. That's the representation agency of Cristiano.
George Mendes.
And Georgia Mendes. Georgia met. We were talking to Georgia Mendes. I was talking to him about the book. He said, yeah, you're a good guy. We'll help you. But remember, we know what gets published from the minute one, and we have to approve it. I said, yeah, Georgia, but this is going to be a different book. You'll be happy with it. And then the whole thing blew up. And I met Georgia Mendes again, and I said, it's a good book. And he says, I know. And he says, I want to talk to you. Not in the tone of I want to break your legs when I see you in a corner of a road. So not that kind of talk to you. It's like, and we've been in touch since. He's a businessman. He knows how it works. But for Cristiano, I saw him then for the update, for the Italian update. I saw him on his first game against Chievo. And he was so happy. They won. It was the first game. He was at Juventus now. He saw me and his face was like, what are you doing here? I just want to talk to you. I'm not talking to you. And that's the beginning of my Italian version of the book. So
another good story to tell.
And it's another good story to tell.
Is there any book in the making at the moment?
Yeah, there always are projects and ideas. I've got 2 books, a contract for 2 books, one with somebody that I haven't convinced yet, but he knows it's going to happen at some point.
Is that Cristiano again? Or?
No, not Cristiano. But the Cristiano one keeps being updated. It's just been updated 2 months ago. No, it's a manager in England that we're very, very close friends, and it's like, I'm not worth it. You are worth it. You finished, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but they finished second in the Premier League last season. So when Mikel is ready, we will do the book. It's got so many layers, you'll be amazed. But the one that I'm going to start working on from August is Aston Villa and Unai Emery.
Another fantastic story.
It's an amazing club that it's been down, and then this doesn't happen anymore in football. A blank canvas is being given to Unai Emery. It's like, this is the club, not just any club. You know, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Such a rich history, a Champions League title.
Yeah. Aston Villa has got a great history, and it reminds me of the, for those of you that are less into football and more into fashion, for instance, the Gucci story, where how, you know, the Gucci went that way, and then Tom Ford, the American designer, just grabbed it, and then just being creative and getting people around him, managed to get the Gucci house up in the top again. And Unai is doing that, taking them to the Champions League. But how is he doing it? Because he's not that interesting. That is interesting. But he pushes people to the top. How does he do it? It'll be interesting to find out how a whole machine, a whole big, massive ship like Aston Villa has been moved towards the right direction. I find that fascinating. So with the story of Unai, the story of Aston Villa, and I'll be with them for most of the year. So while I do CBS, Champions League trips as well. Don't know how I'm going to put that together, because I also have to do BBC and La Liga TV, but it'll all come together eventually.
They are back in the Champions League. They'll be fantastic to watch. Guillem, has the football landscape changed much? Like the access to the new players, the access to the clubs. Like you said, you knew everybody at Liverpool in 2005. You knew everybody at AC Milan. How is it now?
I've been lucky because I've been on television, and when you're on television, people forget that you're a journalist or a writer. And I realized that the first time I went to Melwood, the training ground of Liverpool, and I walked in just shy, thinking somebody he's going to find out that I'm here and he's going to kick me out. By the way, I had this feeling, I still have this feeling. Wherever I go, it's like, I'm thinking any minute now somebody's going to stand up and says, you, out of here, you don't belong
I can
here.
see some securities in the back here.
Yeah. It's like that. I guess a source of motivation deep down, but a source of fear as well. And when I went to Melwood, just like in the corner, and Stevie G said, oh, Guillem, you're right. Hey, all right, mate. How's Barcelona? How's Madrid? Like if they were my clubs, as if I lived there. But I was telling stories in the Sky Sports for like 30 years. So they thought I was one of them. And Jamie Carragher's like, oh, Guillem, lad, you're all right. And then, you know, the manager at the time, Gerard Houllier, oh, sit down, have lunch with us. And I thought, wow, I've got the keys of the training ground of Liverpool. So then you start doing that with others. When Rafa Benitez came in, I accidentally was in Melwood at the door. One day came in, oh, well, come in. So, all right, walked in. And I remember said, all the coaching staff, we're hungry, we want to go to a restaurant. Would you take us to a restaurant? Right, remember, I wasn't earning that much money. I was not going to restaurants at the time. So I took them to Chinatown to have some like £10 menu, 10 euros menu. So they never ever asked me about restaurants ever again. But again, it was that kind of relationship where if they needed something, they will call me, and vice versa. We helped each other. Because of my story with television, being in the BBC now, I still get that thing where I can more or less got everybody's number, more or less. But I know it's not the usual. The usual now is to go through a PR or the press office or whatever. When players feel a little bit in a prison, but that's how it works. There is a whole new group of people that have to earn their money by protecting them or looking after them. An example of that was Jude Bellingham and CBS. Every time we get a big star when we're out there in the road, obviously Matt Curtis, director back in London, tells you put them the microphone and the earbuds and they'll talk to the studio.
Yeah.
And we're more than happy to do that. So to Jude, we were like, you know, who's in the studio? It's like, it's Micah, Jamie, and Thierry. Oh, I want to talk to them. And Real Madrid said, no chance. You're not talking to them. It's like, but I want to talk to them. No. So it works that way. There's strategies that you're not aware of. In the case of Jude Bellingham, by the way, I met his dad. I've spoken to him via text, and former policeman, former striker in grassroots football. So he should understand a little bit. But anyway, whatever message I sent to him, how is everything? If you talk to me, I'll never get you talking to you again. Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, wow.
That's how he does. So I met him on the pitch in Wembley. I said, Mark, says, I know who you are. Do not shake my hand. Because if you shake my hand, I'll get you not to talk to you ever again. So again, I don't know what the strategy is there. His dad doesn't want him to be, and he's the loveliest guy, Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to talk to the media.
And he's clever. He can own his words and his way of thinking. He doesn't need that, you would think.
Yeah, you would think. But so, yeah, we're unaware of those things. And then when Jude, obviously, he was on the pitch, and when everything relaxed a bit, we chatted, and, you know, you get the information, whatever. He used to watch me when he was a kid in Sky, so it's like going full circle. All those things happen. But, yeah, I'm aware now it's very hard to get to them. It's the battle that the new generations have to do. So then it's turned the other way, hasn't it? It's about personalities now in the media. You have to create a personality, a niche, a way of selling yourself. Yeah. And eventually, if you do it well, it may be the players themselves who want to be part of your world. So, yeah, it's a bit harder now.
You moved to England in 1991.
20th of November, 1991.
At what time?
It's not a prison sentence, but I remember it as if it was yesterday.
What the life as an immigrant taught you?
That you cannot take anything for granted, that you have to work all your way all the time. I think wherever you go, when you're not from the place, I think, Damian, we all found this out. There's a glass ceiling that you have to break. I'm sure you have found that as well.
Yeah.
There is so much that you can do. And then to do a little bit more, a little bit like everybody else, or get given the chance like everybody else, you have to work doubly hard, which, by the way, is great. Because if you work doubly hard, you're generally doubly better than most. So you get languages, you develop relationships, you go the extra mile. And that extra mile helps you when you have to tell a story, when you have to contact somebody. But that has been the biggest lesson. And I swear, I'm not looking at this with bitterness. I owe everything to the UK and the Anglo-Saxon world, everything. But I know as well that they made life harder than it could have been because of where I came from. Mm-hmm. Not a problem. I'll show you I can do it. And that has made me better.
You moved straight to Liverpool. How did you deal with the accent?
It stayed in me. Give me 2 days in Liverpool and it all comes back and start talking about work and get in the bus and stuff like that. But they're like a Republican, independent Republican of the UK, where they are Irish, really. They're Catholic. They look after you. They're community-based. So I remember not having money and going to the pub and spending 7 hours with the same pint, and people realize. So the butcher will come and give you a little bit of a steak. Look, I was going to throw this away, but you can keep it. Or the old lady who prepares some scouse, some stew. They're like, I was going to throw this away, but you can keep it. And the baker will bring you some bread, and somebody else will get you another pint.
They look after each other.
They look after each other. And again, that I never forgot. So if anybody comes along and needs something, I'll be there to help. Life is better that way.
You obviously speak many languages. I imagine that English is the natural one that comes to your mind. Now, when you watch a football match and there is a great goal, do you think in Catalan, in Spanish, in English? Is it a golazo or is it a screamer?
It's a goal. It's an English thing.
It's an English thing.
Yeah. So and I struggle a little bit to talk football in Spanish. It's my language, or in Catalan. It's a bit harder. And I'm much more comfortable, using English language for football. It's obviously, to be honest, I wrote the first 2 books in English, but then I saw the translation in the Spanish and Catalan, and I had to redo it, spend 2 months redoing it. So now the books are written in Spanish. I've got my own translator, and I edit the English, do it the other way around. But yeah, it's English, my first language, I think. Even though it's not perfect, is the language I dream in. Yeah.
What advice would you give to people that aspire to be journalists today? Do people still read books? Do people still watch a video with more than 30 seconds? Yeah. Do people are they still interested in big stories? We hope so. There are a lot of people interested in telling big stories and in learning the process of getting there, because along the way, I'm sure it's the same with you, a lot of people says, hi Guillem, I admire you, I love what you do, I want to do what you do, so how do you do what you do? But like now, it's like, well, first of all, I do what I do, so you cannot do it, because that's me doing it. But secondly, work in a pub. No, I mean to work in journalism. Well, I'm telling you my path. I worked in a pub. I distributed bread at 4 o'clock in the morning. I went to a country I didn't know anybody in. I learned a language that I didn't have. That was my way. But certainly, specifically about journalism, we shouldn't forget that we are a microphone. I struggle with being in front of camera interviewing or telling my story in front of camera when the story is the football game or the big star. So we are a microphone. We are the intermediate between the story and the person who lives the story. That's one. And generally too, it's just it's a long-term. It's a marathon. It's a long-term thing. So keep a lot of what you know to yourself. Use it cleverly. Develop relationships, interact, network, and gain the trust that would allow you to tell more stories in the future. So that would be it. I think I still have time for one more question. And as a good Brazilian, I'm going to ask about another Argentinian character that you wrote about. Is Maradona the most interesting character that football ever produced?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could have written a whole series of books on Maradona. Fascinating guy, because I'm going to tell you something that you may not know. You obviously remember the goals of Maradona, how brilliant he was, him being drunk in Russia, and a lot of other things that we all remember about him, being a drug addict, and how badly football dealt with that. They punished him for being a drug addict.
Yeah.
You think about it now, it's like, what? But he was the first one to have a press officer. He was the first one to have a personalized physical coach. He was the first one to defend artists on the pitch, to demand more protection for those that gives us magic moments. He was the first one to create a trade union of football players. Didn't took off, but he was the first one saying we have to defend our rights. He was the first one to tell us that UEFA and FIFA were corrupt, and we didn't believe him. So he not only wanted to be on the stage all the time and was absolutely brilliant as a player, not so great as a manager, but he actually started a new path that others have followed. So I don't think that side has been recognized of him, but that's one of many sides of him. He is a fascinating character. I so love writing about him, and I'm so proud of that book because it's not easy, out of all the stuff that he's done, out of all the stuff that he's given us, to actually pick 350 pages of it. But I think, yeah, we did a good job, and that's another, the book that's out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, Guillem Balaguer.
Thank you.